After losing my son, I was kicked out. What was revealed at the will reading was incredible. Sarah sat in the peeling vinyl chair, her fingers shaking as they gripped the edges of the table. The attorney's words echoed in her mind, a whispered void that draped her heart in shadows. Ethan's laughter still rang in her ears, an echo of life that was too vibrant to have vanished. The will reading was supposed to bring a semblance of closure, but instead the room felt suffocating, pressing her with memories that made her ache. It was never supposed to be this way, her life spiraling down after losing her only son. As the family, once familiar and comforting, watched her like a circus act, their faces masked in mock pity, Sarah felt the walls close in. The house, once filled with the warmth of family gatherings, now felt like a mausoleum. When Ethan's in-laws announced they were removing her from their home, Sarah's heart shattered even further. "It's for the best," they declaimed, voices cold as ice, hollow and devoid of empathy. She had always been a part of this family, but in their grief they saw her merely as a guest. All she wanted was to be enveloped in love, to share stories of Ethan, to cry and feel his absence together, not be thrust into this dismal separation. The thought of an uncertain future gnawed at her. Would she have enough to survive in this small town where every face was a reminder of the life she had lost? Confusion settled over her like fog. She felt like a ghost, drifting in a place where she no longer belonged. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Sarah sifted through Ethan's belongings later that day, fingertips trembling with each memory, she stumbled upon a box tucked away in the corner. Inside, she uncovered a letter meant solely for her. The ink was smudged as if written in haste, but what struck her was the raw love in his words, how deeply he admired her, and how he wished to see her thrive as an artist. The revelation of the art studio he had purchased for her pierced through her heart, igniting a complex blend of passion and anguish. Could she truly embrace this gift? Doubts whispered cruelly. What did she know about running a studio? The world felt heavy on her shoulders. A delightful opportunity now felt like a burden. Just as she began to envision the artistry that would grace those walls, the realities set in her in-laws would never approve. The thought of their disdain for her ambitions churned in her gut, the betrayal stinging like fresh wounds. Just as Sarah began to find her footing, she learned that a woman she once called a friend and fellow artist was intent on reclaiming the studio, citing a shared history, one that cast shadows over Sarah's efforts. Did she have it in her to fight for something she hadn't even begun to claim? The pressure mounted, and the specter of failure loomed larger than ever. She could either turn away or step into the uncertain light of the art fair she had prepared for, where her soul would be exposed on canvas, hoping it would reflect not just her journey of grief, but also her resilience in the face of adversity. The art she poured herself into could be her salvation, but would it resonate with a town that had nearly turned its back on her? As the fair loomed near, terror clawed at her insides, for every piece she put forward meant something. Victory or defeat hung in the balance. And just as Sarah's fear peaked, an unintended reveal threatened to drown her efforts before she could even begin. The fragile tendrils of hope were overshadowed by doubt. Would her pain ever transform into purpose? Would her art truly find a voice, or would it remain obscured, lost to a community that had shunned her when she needed them most? Standing at the precipice of an uncertain future, questions clawed at her. Could she prove her worth before it vanished forever? Determined to reclaim a sense of control, Sarah took a deep breath and set aside the letter. It felt wrong to wallow in sorrow when she could channel her grief into creativity. The art studio stood as a testament to Ethan's belief in her talent, and for the first time since the will reading, she felt a flicker of purpose amidst the tumult. With the fair only days away, Sarah began to sketch. The whispering strokes of her pencil on the canvas became her lifeline, pulling her away from despair and into a realm where she had some measure of agency. Each stroke told a story, layered with shades of blue that echoed her sadness, but also dots of vibrant color that signified hope. This was what Ethan would have wanted, not her to succumb to despair, but to rise and create beauty from sorrow. But as she layered paint onto canvas, doubts began to creep back. Would her work actually resonate with anyone? The thought of standing in front of an audience, exposed and vulnerable, sent a shiver down her spine. What if they laughed? What if they dismissed her efforts as a mere widow's attempt to reclaim fading glory? The fear gnawed at her like an insatiable monster. As she painted, her mind wandered back to her former friend, Miranda, and the way she clung to the idea of the studio. Miranda had once been a source of encouragement, but had transformed into a symbol of competition. Was she right? Did their history overshadow Sarah's claim? The specter of confrontation loomed, and she knew that if she didn't address it, it would loom larger on the day of the fair. With each brush stroke, determination bubbled within her. She couldn't allow fear to win. She had to confront Miranda and lay claim to her dreams. What kind of artist would she be if she didn't even try to fight for the space where she could breathe life into her artistry? Miranda's opinion wouldn't define her. She had to believe in herself even if no one else did. The day before the fair, Sarah made her way to the studio for the first time alone. As she crossed the threshold, an unexpected sense of belonging wrapped around her, and the dust motes floating through rays of sunlight took on an ethereal glow. This space was hers. Here was the potential for creativity, healing, and perhaps reconciliation with her loss. Stepping carefully between scattered boxes and forgotten art supplies, she began to envision the space not only as a gallery, but as a sanctuary for her healing. Here she would build a legacy for Ethan, one that would celebrate his life and their shared dreams. She took a moment to absorb it all, breathing in the stillness. But just as she opened herself to possibility, a sound shattered the silence. Footsteps, familiar and unwelcome. Miranda appeared, her presence instantly darkening the space that had just begun to feel like a refuge. "I didn't expect to see you here alone," she said smoothly, a challenge hidden beneath a veil of politeness. Sarah felt her heart race, all her thoughts about claiming her space dissipating in an instant. How could she find her voice now? As they stood facing each other, the tension crackled like electricity in the air, and Sarah knew she was at a crossroads. She could either retreat and let Miranda reclaim her story, or she could confront her past and assert her claim over her future. With that thought lingering ominously, she steeled herself to speak, her voice trembling but resolute. The time had come to face what I truly wanted, and she was standing right in front of me. "You don't belong here anymore, Sarah." Miranda's words sliced through the air, saturated with a mix of condescension and nostalgia. The studio, once her solace, felt suddenly claustrophobic. Each inch of the familiar walls now stood as a barrier between Sarah and the dreams she sought to reclaim. "I'm just as much a part of this place as you are," Sarah replied, summoning the remnants of her confidence amidst the rising tide of fear. Miranda straightened, tilting her head slightly, a knowing smile creeping onto her lips. "You really think that? After everything that's happened? You think you can just walk back in here and take it?" In that moment, the truth hit Sarah like a blunt force. Miranda was right. She hadn't walked in here without the weight of grief and uncertainty in tow. Yet she refused to back down now. There was more at stake than her dreams. There was a legacy to be honored. "I'm not here to take anything from you. I intend to honor Ethan's memory by creating in this space," Sarah said, her voice steadier as she spoke. Each word peeled back layers of doubt that had clung to her like wet paint. The vulnerability stung, but so did the strength that accompanied it. Miranda's expression morphed, curiosity breaking through her facade. "Create what, exactly? Your little sketches? Do you really think that's enough anymore?" The challenge in her tone snapped, and Sarah could feel her pulse quickening, competing against her own self-doubt. For a brief moment, Sarah's mind swirled with thoughts of all the sketches, the vibrant colors, and the shapes that came alive under her brush. They were more than strokes on canvas. They were glimpses into her heart's landscape. "Maybe they aren't enough for you, but they are for me. This is how I heal, Miranda. First for myself and then for Ethan." The air thickened with unspoken words as Sarah continued to anchor herself in the moment, refusing to back down, refusing to let the shadow of their unfortunate past claim victory. "I'm tired of running from the ghosts of our history. Can't we both create in our own ways?" A silence settled between them, a moment that felt like it stretched into eternity. Did she see a glimmer of something in Miranda's eyes? Was it regret or envy? Sarah couldn't tell, but she hoped it was the latter. Perhaps she had successfully nudged the competitive nature that had marred their friendship into a vulnerable space of introspection. Miranda held her gaze for a moment longer, then stepped back, crossing her arms defensively. You think it's all about competition? It was never like that for me. But this? She gestured around the studio with an air of disdain. You think pouring your heart out onto the canvas is going to draw people in? You think your pain is unique? At that moment, Sarah knew she had two choices: to retreat back into the shadows of doubt or to fight, not just for herself but for every artist who ever faced rejection or resentment. She straightened her posture and breathed in deeply. That's where you're wrong. Pain is universal, and it can connect people like nothing else. I'm not just painting for the world. I'm painting for the memories and the love I carry. Something in Miranda shifted. Perhaps her armor had cracked just enough to allow a glimpse of vulnerability. Maybe, she said, the bite in her words softening. The tension remained palpable, but Sarah felt an ember of hope igniting in her chest. Here was her moment to grow beyond the confines of past relationships, to not only reclaim her space but to set the tone for a transformation. Let us not let this be a war of wills. I need to create and you need to as well. What do you say we support each other? As she spoke, Sarah grappled with uncertainty, acutely aware of the precarious balance of new beginnings and past grievances. Would Miranda accept this olive branch? Or would they find themselves spiraling into a deeper rivalry? As the silence lingered, anticipation tingled along Sarah's spine. She held her breath, waiting for the response that would either forge a new path or deepen the fractures of their past. In her heart, she felt the stirrings of transformation, yet she remained conscious of the unpredictable nature of change. Would this be the beginning of a new artistic alliance, or would old wounds keep them tethered to a history Sarah longed to escape? The answer hung heavily in the air, and with it, the dawn of her own self-discovery awaited just beyond the threshold. The silence stretched, punctuated only by the distant hum of the city beyond the studio walls. Sarah's heart raced, each beat echoing her determination to fight through the uncertainty hanging between her and Miranda. She had put aside years of self-doubt, and she refused to let one setback derail her once more. The walls seemed to close in even tighter, but among the suffocating familiarity, a new resolve began to take form. Miranda finally shifted, her defensive posture softening slightly. I don't know if I can do that, Sarah. Compromising what this place means to me. Her voice trailed off, leaving trailing thoughts exposed. Sarah seized the moment, once again feeling the weight of unseen connections between her art and her past. Then let us redefine what it means, Sarah suggested, her voice gaining strength. Art shouldn't have to bear the weight of ownership. It can be a bridge instead. The metaphor ignited in her mind. Art could connect them, and she saw possibilities flashing out like sparks. But how? Miranda asked, skepticism creeping back into her voice. You think what you want to create will resonate with anyone? With a single stroke, you'll just find yourself in an echo chamber, talking to the walls. The challenge was not just to prove herself, but to integrate her pain into something meaningful that could draw people closer. Even to Miranda. What if we hosted a showcase? A collaborative exhibit? The theme could be healing through art, sharing our journeys, our struggles, Sarah ventured, the idea unfolding like petals of a flower. Miranda's brow furrowed as she considered it. Using our vulnerabilities to create something public? You really think that will work? Art has always been about vulnerability. The world craves authenticity. People connect with what's real. Sarah felt a swell of hope unfurl within her, catalyzing the spark within the darker realities that surrounded them. Watching Miranda process the suggestion ignited a competitive drive inside Sarah. If this would fuse their creativity, it could also challenge both women to confront the shadows of their pasts. We could transform our pain into a powerful narrative, one that speaks to countless others. If we can create something that brings healing, wouldn't that be worth it? A flicker of consideration danced across Miranda's face. You really believe that? She seemed uncertain, yet the slightest hint of interest broke through the hardened surfacing of her facade. It's worth exploring, Sarah replied, channeling her passion and the memory of Ethan into her voice. We owe it to ourselves and to everyone who has felt lost or unseen. The air felt charged as Sarah laid her hopes bare, acknowledging that in weaving their stories together, They would create an intricate tapestry of their shared struggles and triumphs. Moments of silence hung in the air, punctuated by the rustling of canvases and scattered brushes. "So what do you propose? A piece from each of us?" Miranda finally asked, the slightest hint of a challenge glimmering in her eyes. "Exactly. We choose one piece that speaks to our journey, melding our styles. It's a step towards supporting one another, but it's a major leap towards self-discovery for both of us as artists." With that affirmation, a rush of excitement coursed through her. But in the back of her mind, doubts flickered like shadows. Would they truly bridge the gaps or plunge deeper into their past grievances? As they discussed logistics, Sarah felt a strange but energizing blend of fear and exhilaration. Could they really collaborate? What would emerge from such a risky partnership? More importantly, how would this affect her healing process? Just as the full implications of their potential journey began to dawn on her, the familiar door creaked open, and a surprising figure stepped into the studio, disrupting the fragile moment they were crafting. The dawning realization ignited a storm of unanswered questions and anticipated conflict. What now? Sarah thought, her pulse quickening in response to the interruption. And amidst her swirling feelings, one single stark question emerged. What would this unexpected visitor reveal, and how would it affect her quest for healing and growth? The air thickened with tension as the figure in the doorway stepped forward, their silhouette cutting a stark contrast against the soft glow of the studio lights. For a moment, Sarah's heart was frozen in place, an unfamiliar mix of dread and curiosity filling her. She refused to dwell on the abrupt interruption. Instead, she focused on the spontaneous energy that surged through her, an act of defiance against the self-doubt that had been her shadow. "Ethan's father," the visitor spoke, voice steady yet laden with emotions that seemed to pierce the stillness in the room. The name sent a shockwave coursing through Sarah. Memories flooded her mind, biting into her determination. Was this confrontation the catalyst she needed, or merely another distraction in her already fragile state of mind? Miranda's expression transformed, disbelief morphing quickly into apprehensive curiosity. "What do you want?" she demanded, her tone sharper than Sarah's own mounting turbulence. The man hesitated, as if choosing his words carefully, but Sarah found herself stepping forward, the instinct to reclaim her narrative overpowering the currents of uncertainty. "What do you want?" she echoed, her voice steady despite the tempest within. "I want to speak about Ethan, about the will." His gaze shifted between the two women, yanking at the frayed threads of their shared pain. "He left something for both of you." The revelation hung in the air, heavy and uncomfortable. Sarah's mind raced, caught between the unexpected turmoil and a flickering anticipation. What could he reveal? Would it bring closure or reopen still raw wounds? With every heartbeat, the disconnect between past grief and present growth expanded. She couldn't afford to be swept away by old sorrows. This was about redefining herself, asserting her right to forge a path forward. Miranda crossed her arms defensively, almost as if guarding against the emotional storm that threatened to unfold. "You think we care about his will? Why should we trust you?" A slight tremor ran through the man's voice. "Because it's not about the money. It's about what Ethan hoped for both of you. He believed in you both as artists, as people." The words struck Sarah like a jolt of electricity, igniting a flicker of warmth amid the chill of uncertainty. Ethan had always seen her in a light she struggled to see in herself. Could this be the moment where the past shadows might be replaced by the flicker of possibility? "Let us listen," she said, her voice revealing the resolve she was cultivating. Miranda's eyes flicked towards Sarah, uncertainty mingling with barely suppressed hope. "You really think this matters?" she questioned, but there was a crack in her armor, a flicker of eagerness peeking out. As they conceded together to hear the visitor's words, Sarah reaffirmed her belief that growth wasn't solely about the art they created. It was also about grappling with their histories. She had to confront the lingering shadows of grief, of guilt, and of uncertainty. "Ethan wanted you to explore what healing looks like together," the man continued, drawing them back into his narrative, his words weaving a connection. "He believed in your need to express yourselves, to move forward beyond your pain." Sarah's heart raced. If Ethan believed this collaboration was essential, could she trust in that vision? The path ahead was fraught, yet every thread of doubt was slowly being unraveled in the presence of this unexpected visitor. seeking to transform her loss into something meaningful, suddenly took on a greater significance. But as the conversation unfolded, a gnawing question lingered. What specific legacy had Ethan left behind that could spark such profound transformation? The very question hung ominously as they all fell into contemplative silence, the weight of the moment pressed against them, foreshadowing the revelations that were still to come. The silence lingered, pregnant with lingering questions and unspoken fears, as Sarah and Miranda exchanged glances laden with uncertainty. Each woman grappled with her own version of Ethan's absence, a different story woven from the same frayed threads of grief. This unexpected thrust from the past ignited within Sarah an urgent desire to question everything she had accepted after Ethan's passing. Together Sarah repeated, each syllable resonating with a quiet weight. What does that even mean for us? She felt a rawness creeping into her voice, a mix of vulnerability and defiance. Could this be an invitation to explore the depths of their shared pain, or an unthinkable task to bear the burden of his legacy alone? Ethan's vision, it wasn't just for himself, it was for us, the man replied, his sincerity drawing them closer into his orbit. He wanted you to collaborate, to create something that embodied your resilience. He knew the power of partnership in art, how it could facilitate healing. The images of her paintings danced through Sarah's mind, each brushstroke a testament to her battle against the somnolent hold of grief. But had she truly been fighting for herself, for an identity outside of any relation to Ethan, or was she merely rehashing her pain in solitary confinement? Collaborate? Miranda scoffed, her skepticism cutting through the frail hope swelling inside Sarah. With what? The hollow echo of words left behind. He wanted you to find closure, to convert that pain into a strong foundation. Ethan's father pressed, leaning toward them, as if somehow grounding their spiraling thoughts. You still have the power to innovate together. A flash of recognition passed between the two women. Miranda, too, felt the weight of untapped potential, buried beneath a facade of anger and sorrow. This was a turning point, a juncture that echoed with opportunity and dread. What if we could create something meaningful? Something that reflects not just our loss but also our growth? Sarah ventured, her heart racing. She felt an old yearning stir, one towards artistry and shared expression. Could this moment galvanize a shift in their relationship, moving from adversaries in sorrow to joint pioneers of healing? But what would that look like? The lingering apprehension mingled with a spark of ambition. Ethan's father, she said slowly. What specifically did Ethan leave for us? The man sighed, his earlier confidence faltering slightly. He left a series of unfinished works, ideas, sketches, notes. He believed they could serve as a blueprint for your collaboration, or as the catalyst for your individual growth. The implications rang harshly in Sarah's ears. Notes? She grappled with the notion of pouring herself back into paintings and concepts born from Ethan's thought process, contrasting it with the fear of never living up to his legacy. Imagine, Ethan's father continued, a project that showcases who you are beyond your shared grief. You will channel your passions, your memories, and forge them into something new. Or his pause was deliberate. You may choose to remain anchored in the past, letting it define your future. The ultimatum hung ominously in the air, igniting the tension in the room. The potential for triumph danced tantalizingly close, yet the shadow of doubt briskly threatened to snuff it out. We need to deliberate what this means for us, Sarah said, her resolve settling internally. She needed to focus on her own aspirations, her own boundaries. This was not about surpassing Ethan's legacy. It was about creating her own voice amidst the chaos. As they began to exchange tentative plans for the future, an unsettling thought flickered in the back of Sarah's mind. What if they failed to deliver on Ethan's vision? The anxiety perched uncomfortably on her shoulders. Eternally unknown consequences loomed behind every decision they might make. Just as the potential partnership began to take shape in their minds, a loud crash echoed from another part of the studio, shattering the budding optimism. The unexpected sound drew their attention, a harsh reminder that the path ahead was fraught with external, as well as internal conflicts. Do you hear that? Miranda stood, her expression shifting from hopeful contemplation to alarm. What is happening? The abrupt disruption felt like a warning before a storm, a reminder that the journey of rediscovery wouldn't merely be shaped by the legacy left behind, but also by the challenges yet to confront. As Sarah prepared to face whatever new chaos awaited, A single thought anchored her. The moment of truth was nearing, and it would define not just their art but their very identities. The tension in the air thickened as Sarah absorbed the intensity of their current situation. Miranda's alarm was palpable, her eyes darting toward the source of the crash, an excruciating reminder of the chaos that had already invaded their lives since Ethan's death. What if it's a sign? Sarah whispered mostly to herself, a knot tightening in her chest. She had always believed that events bore meanings, that signs amidst turmoil hinted at the choices she needed to confront. But was this a sign to push forward, or to retreat back into grief? As they cautiously made their way toward the noise, her mind shifted from doubt to resolve. This was an opportunity to redefine what had so long felt like stagnant waters, to explore the uncharted territory of her own creativity, while unearthing deep-seated emotions. She had felt paralyzed by her grief, but perhaps articulating that pain could free her spirit instead. "Let us check it out," Sarah said, her voice stronger than she felt. The studio's corridor stretched before them, dimly lit and cluttered with remnants of Ethan's work, framed canvases leaning against walls, paint-splattered tarps, and half-finished sculptures that bore witness to his painstaking dedication. When they reached the crashing point, they found an overturned easel and shattered glass from a broken frame. An unfinished portrait of Ethan lay among the debris, its half-painted visage offering a haunting reflection of the man they had lost. Miranda knelt beside the fragmented glass, frustration etched across her face. "Great, just what we needed," she muttered. "More reminders of what he left behind. Or perhaps a reminder of what we can create together," Sarah countered, a spark igniting within her. As they began to clean up the mess, each shard of glass felt symbolic, sharp reminders of vulnerability, but also of the fragility of their shared journey. Sarah found herself reflecting on what that vulnerability could mean for her as an artist. Each collection of objects surrounding them whispered tales of half-finished moments, stories not yet told. "Every broken piece can find its place in a new creation," she proposed, contemplating how she could reshape not only the glass but also her perception of Ethan's legacy. "What we make now can encompass the entirety of our lives, both the pain and the beauty." Miranda paused, considering the implication. "That sounds hopeful," she said reluctantly, but Sarah detected a flicker of interest in her expression. "It's just, what if we create something that doesn't live up to what he envisioned? Then we'll fail, and this will all be for nothing." "Failure is necessary to grow," Sarah replied more forcefully now. "He left us material to work with, not directions. The journey itself could be the art, or at least the canvas on which we paint our new identities." With glass cleaned, they found a new resolve beneath the debris, though fear still clung to them. Each step toward reclaiming the studio felt like a step into the unknown, where both danger and possibility coalesced. As they regrouped at the workspace, Sarah envisioned how they could intertwine their emotions with art, transforming sorrow into motivation. What could they create that would reflect their unique experiences? Could they use Ethan's unfinished works as blueprints or mere inspiration? The choices stretched before them like an expansive canvas, yet doubt lingered at the edges. "Let us find a direction," she suggested, breathing life into the idea. "We can start with what Ethan left. But this is also our moment to create something distinctly ours." Miranda seemed to soften, a small nod affirming that the stakes had shifted. "What if we curate those unfinished works into something completely new? Something that comments on loss yet celebrates the healing process?" Their eyes locked. An unspoken agreement passed between them. They recognized that they were standing at a precipice, teetering between revitalization and retreat. As they began the daunting task of sorting through Ethan's notes and sketches, the enormity of their undertaking began to settle in. "Whatever we do, it has to resonate. It has to feel true," Sarah said, each word heavy with implication. A momentary silence enveloped them before they dove into the papers, brainstorming where to begin. But beneath the excitement, uncertainty loomed. What if they discovered more than they bargained for about Ethan, about themselves? Every thought collided with the echoes of doubt that still pressed upon their shoulders, each flicker of hope battling against the past. With the weight of those unknowns pressing down, Sarah realized they now faced a challenge that stretched far beyond the art itself. The breakthrough they sought was not solely in the collaboration but in redefining who they were in connection to Ethan and, more importantly, to themselves. But just as they dug deeper into the ideas that sparked between them, A voice cut through their concentration. An unexpected intruder loomed in the doorway. "I couldn't help but overhear your plans," said a familiar figure, stepping into the studio. "And I think you might be in over your heads." The words hung ominously in the air, sending a chill down Sarah's spine. Who was this new arrival? And how would they impact the fragile path she had started to forge with Miranda? Sarah's heart raced as she turned to face the intruder, her surprise mingling with apprehension. The figure in the doorway belonged to Charles, Ethan's former mentor and a respected figure in the art world. His presence loomed large, casting a shadow over the fragile optimism Sarah had just begun to cultivate. "I believe I heard you say something about creating something new," Charles continued, a hint of skepticism lacing his tone. "With what remains of Ethan's work? That's a lofty ambition for someone so inexperienced." "Experience doesn't define creativity," Sarah shot back, surprised at her own boldness. "What we're trying to do here is honor Ethan. Honor. You think using his unfinished fragments makes you an artist?" Charles interrupted, his voice sharp. The edge in his delivery pierced through Sarah's resolve like glass cutting through flesh. "Charles, can you not see what's unfolding here?" Miranda interjected, stepping in front of Sarah, her protective instincts flaring. "We're trying to process our grief. This is about more than just art, it's about healing." "We're not seeking your approval," Sarah added, finally finding her footing. The determination surged within her, forcing her to confront Charles's dismissive attitude head-on. "We're creating from our shared experiences, channeling our pain and joy through art. It's authentic, it's ours." He scoffed lightly, folding his arms as he leaned against the doorframe, projecting an air of authority. "What you call authentic might be clinging to a story that isn't yours. You risk tarnishing his legacy instead of celebrating it." A knot twisted in Sarah's stomach, but she refused to let it paralyze her. In that moment, she recognized the deeper battle that lay before her, not just against Charles's disapproval, but also against the remnants of self-doubt that had festered since Ethan's death. Was she really strong enough to navigate this tumultuous journey? Pouring through Ethan's work had opened up possibilities that felt invigorating, but also daunting. Now facing Charles's challenges, clouds of uncertainty began to gather once more. Did she ever have the right to create alongside Ethan when even his mentor questioned her intentions? What if we succeeded? Sarah's words rushed out, pulling Miranda's attention back to her. What if we transformed those fragments into something beautiful? Something that could celebrate loss and healing in one breath? Or it could be a disaster, Charles said coolly, emboldened by Sarah's vulnerability. His expression shifted subtly, revealing a glimmer of concern masked behind skepticism. "Your hearts might be in the right place, but without true skill and direction, you're heading toward failure." His words struck like a sledgehammer, each syllable solidifying the weight of doubt in Sarah's heart. Yet, as the tension coiled tighter, she felt something inside stir anew. She couldn't allow the threat of failure to undermine her courage or stifle her creativity. Defiance ignited, and Sarah looked Charles squarely in the eye, ready to voice her true revelation. "The fear of failure won't stop us. We're going to rediscover Ethan's work and build something that reflects our journey. If you choose to dismiss that, then that's your loss." With each heartbeat, she felt a clarity she hadn't recognized before, a sense of purpose reminding her that the true essence of an artist comes from within, not solely from technical prowess or accolades. She might stumble, but that very vulnerability was a necessary part of the process. Charles hesitated, uncertainty flickering across his features, as if he sensed the gravity of the ground shifting beneath him. Could he genuinely understand the transformative power of their shared grief? Or would he remain obstinately locked in his view of art as a rigid construct? "Just remember," he said at last, though his voice hung a bit lighter, "pushing boundaries comes with risks, and sometimes the worst outcomes arise from lofty aspirations." As he stepped back into the corridor, Sarah's resolve solidified. The shadow he cast was not going to dim her vision. Instead, it illuminated the path ahead for her and Miranda. "What do you think?" she asked, turning back to Miranda, her eyes alight with determination. "This is just the beginning, right? We can do this together despite what he says." Miranda nodded slowly, her earlier skepticism beginning to dissipate. "We need to harness this energy, channel it into something that's distinctly ours. But we have to be cautious too. The vision must come from us. Their minds began racing with ideas, the possibilities unfolding as they dug deeper into Ethan's work. The collision of fear and creativity sparked an unstoppable momentum, the very essence of the emotional journey they both needed. Just as they started crafting the first steps of their artistic resurrection, an unexpected interruption rang through the studio, echoing like a thunderclap. A new challenge loomed on the horizon. A letter slipped under the door, ominously marked with the familiar seal of Ethan's estate. What now? Sarah mused, dread creeping in as she felt the weight of another uncertainty settle over her shoulders. As she bent down to retrieve the letter, she realized none of this would be straightforward, and whatever lay ahead would require more than just artistry. It would demand inner strength, resilience, and the relentless drive to confront the truth about Ethan's legacy. Sarah's fingers trembled as she picked up the letter, its weight heavy with implications. She could feel Miranda's anxious gaze on her, the air thick with suspense. What secrets lie behind that envelope? As she slid her fingernail beneath the flap, her heart raced not just from curiosity, but from the very real concern of what this might mean for their plans. The letters had been addressed from Ethan's estate. Every detail suddenly felt critical. She took a deep breath and unfolded the crisp paper, her eyes scanning the elegant script. To her dismay, the content was anything but encouraging. The letter outlined a stipulation regarding Ethan's works, citing the need to preserve his artistic legacy intact. While it allowed for collaboration, it imposed strict guidelines Charles would undoubtedly approve of. Sarah. Miranda's voice was cautious, prompting her to pay attention to the emotional turbulence brewing inside. What does it say? It's restrictive, Sarah whispered, reading aloud portions that seemed to echo Charles's sentiments. We need explicit permission for alterations, even for these fragments. Disappointment settled in her chest like a stone, and a sick feeling knotted her stomach. Miranda frowned, concern etched into her features. So what are we supposed to do now? This is not what we envisioned. Sarah's mind raced. She wanted to scream, to shred that letter into pieces. But she also knew that would accomplish nothing. They were once again boxed in by the past, the limitations of Ethan's choices constricting their current aspirations. We can't let this be the end, she asserted, an edge of desperation slicing through her voice. Ethan might have envisioned something rigid, but we're not bound by his past decisions. At that moment, she felt an urgency swell within her. Perhaps they could leverage this stranglehold instead of succumbing to it. What if we use this letter as a framework to guide our creative process? The idea came to her as fast as it left her lips. This could be an opportunity to establish a new narrative, perhaps one that reflects his journey, but is also open to evolution. Miranda's eyes widened with intrigue. You mean find ways to reinterpret what we have without contravening the restrictions? It could render the pieces reborn instead of just refined. Yes. Sarah's pulse quickened as adrenaline coursed through her veins. We could work within those boundaries, creating something that honors Ethan's brilliance while also allowing our voices to shine through. We take the essence of his artistry and make it ours. The more Sarah spoke, the more energized she felt. This setback, rather than haunting them, could fuel bold transformations. Defiance rippled through her. They had the tools of grief and creativity, scarred by loss but empowered by their unique interpretations. Adapting to these guidelines was not merely submission. It was a strategic maneuver, a redefinition of what it meant to be an artist in the wake of overwhelming sorrow. But embodying this new path would require careful thought, a calculated, deliberate execution of each artistic choice. As they mulled over ways to infuse life into the constraints imposed on them, a gleam of hope flickered in Sarah's mind. They could embrace this transition, this exploration, a reclamation of Ethan's legacy guided by their individual insights. Still, the shadow of doubt lingered. What if Charles was right? Was it possible that their efforts would only misinterpret his vision? Each decision would have to be intentional, weighing emotion against technique, heart against heritage. Just then, Sarah felt a strange shift in her resolve. Could she, an inexperienced artist, actually construct something that would deserve a place beside Ethan's true genius? What if she failed, tainting his work rather than elevating it? In that moment of introspection, she realized she needed clarity, inspiration that could illuminate her path forward. But how? Who could be a guiding light when the expectations felt insurmountable? I need to talk to someone who knew Ethan. Better, Sarah declared suddenly, breaking the suffocating silence. Someone who can help me understand his intentions, and the depth of his artistry beyond the surface. Miranda's brow furrowed. You mean, Charles? No, Sarah shook her head dismissively. Someone else, someone who wasn't clouded by his own views. The prospect of searching for a different mentor ignited a new flame in her spirit. She could uncover layers of Ethan's work that hadn't been seen before. A journey that might just allow new light to shine through. Determined, she prepared to reach out to connect with those who genuinely appreciated Ethan's complexity. Those who could offer wisdom without the confines of criticism. Yet as she plotted her course, a deeper anxiety filled her. Wading through these connections might also dredge up painful truths. The door to the studio creaked open slightly, an unsuspecting reminder of how precarious their foundation remained. Everything was shifting. With newfound purpose brewing in her chest, Sarah resolved. She would not only honor a legacy but also challenge it, pushing forward with creativity and intent, regardless of the potential risks. And so, Sarah took her first step into the unknown, prepared to confront another layer of her journey, the search for a mentor who could help her find her footing amidst lost art and lingering shadows of the past. But would uncovering Ethan's true intentions strengthen her resolve or unravel everything she had fought for? Sarah felt a surge of anticipation as she entered the cafe, a familiar haunt where Ethan often met his friends and fellow artists. The rich aroma of coffee wrapped around her like a comforting blanket, nudging her back into a sensual memory of better times. Today was different, though she was here on a mission to connect with those who shared a genuine understanding of Ethan's artistic vision. Those who could guide her in honoring his legacy while carving out her own path. As she scanned the crowd, her gaze landed on Daniel, an artist and a close confidant of Ethan's from years past. With his tousled hair and paints often streaked across his apron, he epitomized the chaotic beauty of the art world that Ethan loved. Sarah approached him, her pulse racing. "Do you have a moment to talk?" she asked, her voice steady despite her nerves. Daniel looked up, his expression shifting from surprise to warmth. "Sarah, of course. It's been a while. I heard about Ethan. It's been tough, hasn't it?" "I'm trying to find my footing," she admitted, the weight of her journey spilling into her words. "I discovered some of his unfinished pieces and notes, but I'm struggling to understand how to honor them while also channeling my own voice." Daniel's brow furrowed in thoughtful consideration. He always believed in the marriage of pain and beauty. It's how he created depth in his work. "What are you trying to express?" Sarah paused, her heart pounding as she reflected on the layers of her grief. "I want to convey healing. I want people to see that life continues beyond loss, that beauty can emerge from chaos. But what if I don't do it justice? What if I fail?" "Failure is part of the process," Daniel stated, his voice steady. "Remember, Ethan found strength in vulnerability. His art wasn't about perfection. It was a testament to raw life experiences, rich in feelings but imperfect in form." Sarah nodded, absorbing the grounding wisdom. "I'm scared I'll tarnish what he built. How can I ensure I'm capturing his artistry authentically?" "Draw from your emotions. Let them guide you." Daniel leaned in closer, his tone shifting to one of compassion. He once said that art is a shared language. It speaks where words fall short. If you weave your truth into your creations, you will resonate with others. Art reflecting not just grief but resilience. His words ignited a flame deep within her, a flicker of hope in a previously engulfing darkness. "You're right. It's not just about preserving his legacy. It's about evolving it." With newfound determination, Sarah shared her vision of integrating Ethan's unfinished works with her own. Together, they envisioned a collaborative exhibit that would showcase both Ethan's raw emotions and Sarah's journey of healing and exploration of loss that would resonate with all. As Daniel's enthusiasm grew, Sarah felt herself release the tight grip of her fears. What if we drafted a plan together? We could bring in others who knew him, artists who could contribute their interpretations of loss and healing. This could become something bigger than just Ethan's work. "I'd love to be part of that," Daniel replied, excitement lighting his eyes. "Let us gather people who loved him, who felt his impact. We can facilitate a platform for artists to share their journeys. Could inspire so many." Leaving the cafe, Sarah felt buoyed by possibility. She had shifted from uncertainty to direction, a defining moment where grief transformed into purpose. With newfound confidence, she recognized that her art could authentically honor Ethan, merging his genius with her lived experience. Armed with a plan, she returned to the studio, clutching a notebook filled with potential collaborators' names, themes, and ideas. A sense of gratitude flooded her as she stepped inside this sacred space, once again her refuge. Then she turned to Miranda, who was eagerly preparing for their joint artistic journey. "I spoke with Daniel," Sarah explained, her excitement climbing. "We're brainstorming an exhibit, a celebration of healing through art. It can merge your creativity with mine and encompass all those who shared in our grief." Miranda's face lit up, reflecting the spark Sarah felt inside. "This is incredible. We can weave our narratives into something transcendent. We have to start reaching out, sharing our vision." Sarah felt a wave of elation surging through her. They were no longer weighed down by past grievances or limited by expectations. Instead, they were becoming innovators, artists eager to share their truths, ultimately breaking free from shackles of doubt. Days later, as they prepared for the first meeting of the proposed artists' collaborative, small hints of transformation thrived within them. Friends who had once kept their distance due to grief and pity began to express interest, eager to understand how Ethan's work could influence their own artistic journeys. The collaborative meeting filled the studio with laughter, tension, and mutual understanding. They exchanged stories about shared loss and hope as they began to carve out space for healing amidst creative expression. Each artist brought their unique vision, enriching the tapestry they were creating together, an original response to grief and resilience. As the days passed and the opening of the exhibit approached, Sarah found herself standing before a canvas reflecting both her journey and her embrace of Ethan's artistry. Each brushstroke told a story of healing, connectedness, and triumph, the embodiment of her renewed spirit. On opening night, standing in front of the crowd that had come to witness not just her art, but also the communal journey they had embarked upon as artists, she felt a mixed wave of vulnerability and triumph wash over her. This was the culmination of her growth, the reclamation of her voice and identity. As she ambled through the crowd, sharing connections with other artists, she felt seen, elevated beyond the shadows of her past. Sarah had transformed not only her sorrow into something tangible, but also jettisoned her doubts in favor of confidence. This was her artistic evolution, one that honored Ethan while celebrating the profound resilience in the human experience. When she finished speaking about her art and its inspiration, applause surged through the gallery like an electric pulse, wrapping around her in palpable waves of recognition and validation. She raised her glass in gratitude. This accolade was the culmination of both her journey and a collaborative effort that pulled them all together. In that moment, she realized she had achieved something monumental, a new beginning, acknowledging the past while courageously stepping toward the future. The fear of failure had shifted to pride in their shared narrative, bringing authenticity and purpose to not just their own lives, but to the community they had built in the journey of healing. As she basked in the moment, her heart swelled with pride. Sarah had conquered not just the trials of grief, but had proven her artistry was valid and powerful, rising from the ashes of loss into brilliant, vivid clarity. In the end, she recognized that echoes of grief would always be with her, but she now held the power to reflect them through her art, beautifully transformed. As she stepped outside the gallery, the night sky illuminated with stars, she felt a robust sense of self, knowing she was finally on her own path, a vibrant voice ready to spotlight the very essence of being alive. This was her moment of triumph, and she wouldn't trade it for anything. Now, as you reflect on Sarah's journey, remember this pivotal moment of transformation. Life can be a creative canvas where we paint new narratives from pain, but it requires action and support through every brushstroke. So don't wait even one more second. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Show your support by leaving a like now to feed the algorithm, and don't forget to comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Finally, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Take that step now.